Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight out there? Welcome to Cup of Joe with Joe. And this is actually episode 17, I believe. Thank you all for putting up with me and in participating in our evening discussions and about everything that's going on. So, we got a couple of things come up. How are you doing, Arif? Glad to see you out there in Liberia. Wow. Nice of you to join us, Arif. Um, So, one of the big things that has been in the news a lot is give me a moment here and work through the process. And this is, yes, if I actually spell it right, baby formula, right? We've been around long enough. Baby formula should be a given, right? We've been using it to simulate mother's milk for what, 70 years now? 1950s. 1940s, clear back, whew, way back when. You know, Gone through a couple iterations. Some of them proved to be safe, some of them not so safe. But baby formula, something the pediatricians have been recommending as a substitute for mother's milk in order to make sure that certain vitamins and nutrients that a lot of mothers don't actually get in their regular diet actually make it into the children's system. There's an awful lot of arguments out there, one way or another, on whether formula or breast milk is better. Uh, I'll level with you. I got the opinion, go all natural. If you are in a situation where, as a mother, you're able to breastfeed, strongly recommended. That said, one of the primary reasons for going to baby formula is because women work. They don't have a steady schedule. They can't be with their child 24/7 in the United States in order to make sure that when the child is hungry, the child gets fed. So we do formula. We do bottles. Yes, we do bottles. I remember growing up, and for my little brothers and sisters, mom would have me make the bottles. Usually we just used cow milk. We didn't use, or even dried milk. We didn't really use baby formula back then, even though it was available. You know, I won't lie. Let's be honest about this. All of my kids were breastfed. Really appreciate the effort my ex-wife put into making sure that happened. None of them were ever on formula for any reason. But now, here we are, 70 plus years of baby formula, and we have a nationwide shortage, and mothers who are trying to go back to work can't find formula to send with their children to daycare so that they can continue to work. Now, this is problematic because there's an awful lot of doctors out there saying, don't do the home bake formula. Don't do the home bake baby formula thing because it doesn't have the same nutrients in it. Some of the old school versions, you see cycling back around, put Caro syrup in the powdered milk. Yeah. There's reasons why you don't put corn syrup in stuff. We've gone through that. We're looking at health issues all across the United States because of corn syrup being, primary sweetener in most of our foods. Corn syrup is in everything. It's in all of our sodas. It's sweetener in most of our products. You can find corn sweetener or corn syrup in most of our cereals, just about anything that's canned. We're continuing to develop health issues related to that. So it's becoming more and more problematic as these continues to get more and more expensive, and the ability to substitute and create your own substitutes, finding the baby formula substitutes that work. because we've created a system that is dependent on baby formula because we don't give mothers maternity leave to spend with their babies during those formative years. Okay. Now, for those of you out there that are going, well, but women need to work. Okay. There are women out there who choose to be mothers. They want to be the best mother they can. They want to be with their child. The United States is one of the few where there is not mandatory maternity leave associated with the career field. Right? Okay. You're making your own back then. Still had to make the formula for the kids so the kid could, be left with caregiver. And how long has it been since middle class America hired wet nurses to take care of their children while middle class mom did some kind of work? Been a while. And believe, working mom, support that. The economy wasn't right, right. Here we are going through shortages in the middle of an economy that's completely tanked. Half of America isn't participating in the workforce in any meaningful way, yet everybody is still working. Everybody's still finding some way to earn money under the table to make sure that rent gets paid or something else is happening. Women, in a lot of these cases, don't have the options to stay home. Yes, breast milk is best. And it's one of the reasons why in most other countries where you have these issues, maternity leave is available so that they can continue to breastfeed through the formative years of their child. Okay. We like taking care of mothers. We like taking care of women who want to be mothers just as much as we like making sure that the women who want to go into the workforce, want to join the workforce, can join the workforce and advance unmolested. We got a problem with that in America too right now. The idea that women who want to participate in the workforce, there's a particular way they advance. That's bullshit. Okay. Women are a part of our culture, part of our economy. World War I, World War II, they joined the workforce. World War I, World War II, women in the workforce built the unions that built America while American boys and men went off to fight wars. Okay. They have been and continue to be some of the greatest contributors to the best aspects of American culture that we are currently still barely enjoying. Baby food shortage, baby formula shortage. Okay, one of the other issues that's related to this is, of course, it's supply chain issue. We can go back to talking about supply chain issue, and we're going to keep harping on it. Reason why is because it's continuing to break down. It's breaking down further and further and further. Okay, baby formula. Okay, we knew the shortage was going to come a while back. Reason why is because most of the baby formula produced in the United States was produced in Puerto Rico. Most of the manufacturing capacity in Puerto Rico was destroyed during the hurricane. We never built back up in Puerto Rico after the hurricane, which included several of the plants that were responsible for making baby formula for the entirety of the United States. And this didn't exactly help that much 2 years ago when we did the whole run. And an awful lot of people out there thought that baby formula was a substitute for milk. Yeah, people did that. There's an awful lot of baby formula that went to waste when people realized that baby formula don't taste like milk. So it's part of a community development project. Now, this isn't something I say lightly. There are women out there who are lactating right now. Okay. Help a girlfriend out. Okay. Right? There you go. FDA shut down the plant due to bacteria 3 months ago. Okay, couldn't meet the EU standard. The EU standard, okay, European Union standard. It couldn't meet the European Union standard, which is why the plant shut down. And so we continue to see these issues develop and develop and develop and develop. Okay, we aren't meeting the EU standard. We aren't meeting the American standard. US based production is continuing to be hit left and right as a result. So now we got a shortage. Step in, help a neighbor, help a friend. Ladies, if you lactate, help a sister out. Can't believe I'm actually talking about this. Come on, guys. Take care of each other. Step in, help where you can. Not everybody's capable. Sex education, child rearing education has been one of the most neglected things here in the United States. The number of children who have never breastfed simply because their mothers were never taught to breastfeed. Okay, that continues to be another problem that's developing across the United States, is the lactation specialists, the nurses, the nurse practitioners that teach women how to breastfeed their children were some of the earliest let go during the COVID pandemic. So we were continuing to see children born and mothers that weren't educated on some of the considerations associated with being able to raise happy, healthy children. And here we are. FDA, big government, shutting down because we can't meet standards because we didn't rebuild the infrastructure. Pay attention, folks. Okay, this is only going to get worse because we're continuing to see these policies cascade. The more of these policies that continue to fail, just like dominoes, we'll continue to see more and more fall. Step in, help a sister out. Start raising your own gardens, folks. It's going to be a big thing. Gas prices. Let's talk about gas prices, folks. Yeah, we're going to do that here for a little moment. We're going to talk about gas prices. So, most of you have been paying attention to the gas prices for a little while. Now, there are people who live in major metro areas, right? Who live in major metro areas, have access to mass transit. Whether you live in the San Francisco Bay Area and ride the BART, whether you live in Chicago and ride the L, you have access to mass transportation. Buses. Now, when you start taking a look at what's going on with the mass transit system and you realize gas continues to build up, one of the problems is in the Midwest, out here in flyover country, a lot of the developments have been specifically built so that they only function for people who own cars. Okay. We understand suburbs are built for people who drive cars. Cities are built for people who walk or use mass transit. Nice little square streets, easily accessible, small blocks. Out here in the suburbs, you got these little curly Q subdivisions where you got to drive 2 miles before you can even get to the nearest main street. Yes. Go ahead and hit this one up here real bright. Meds. Yeah, when your meds get in the way. Oh, yeah. I don't understand it. Women can be judgmental. You feed them formula, they're judgmental. You breastfeed, they're judgmental. I never understood that particular divide. The gas prices are continuing to go up. We're continuing to see the supply. And while we're going to talk more about this specifically later, 40 billion in aid to the Ukraine. Now, what that means is a significant amount of that is money that will be going to be purchasing gas and oil products in order to keep Ukraine fighting the war against Russia. Okay, that's going to be money, that's going to be gas going into Eastern Europe and into the Ukraine in order to continue the fight. Okay, Department of Defense, NATO has been granted priority for gas. As a result, trains run on diesel, electric trains in the areas. Yep. Gas, that's natural gas. Gas, coal, bunker oil. Okay, now for those of you who is actually interesting, the reason why is because there is no mass transit in the state of Idaho that runs on electricity. We have the city transit, all its gas powered. Actually, I think we're using propane for our buses here in Boise and most of our other mass transit. Valley Transit Authority runs on propane. Thanks, Ghost Star. Appreciate that. And out here in Idaho is right. Yeah, most of the electric. Now we look at most of the major cities. Chicago runs on electric. New York runs on electric. LA, San Francisco, all run on electric. They all got the little overhead sun power, so they don't have to maintain batteries, electric batteries. They got the electric running overhead, continuing to operate things. Okay. All of these, they're electric, right? That electricity is still provided by gas, coal, oil power stations. So these electric powered mass transit systems, all they've done is relocate the environmental damage that's associated with the power that keeps them going. An electric train is essentially a NIMBY device. Think about it. Okay. Electric trains still require the burning of fossil fuels in a lot of places in order to function. It's just that the fossil fuel is being burnt somewhere else and the power is being piped in at a loss. So we're actually burning more oil in order to power electric vehicles on grids in major metro areas in the United States so that they're not dealing with smog and somebody else has to suck it up. Now, we're working on that. There are an awful lot of clean energy sources out there. Let's go ahead and talk about climate change and clean energy. It is out here brought up, until we're actually able to make a lot of those clean energy capabilities environmentally capable. Let's go with that. In order to keep an awful lot of those green energies environmentally capable, there are some things that we need to consider. One, do we do the electric grid versus the electric battery? Reason why is because the electric battery requires significant lithium mining in order to work, in order to function. And so the process of collecting and acquiring and processing the lithium in order to have that battery storage for that power so that you can move about the United States the way gas allows us to move about the United States is an environmental hazard everywhere, anywhere. Now, you use an electric car, like in San Francisco, and there's an electric grid for you to hook into. It works. You don't have to worry about the lithium battery, the lithium mining. However, you're still burning petrol fuels. You're still burning. Yeah, Sandy, absolutely. These are the things that we're looking at. How do we go about, yeah, gas prices are a lot about corporate greed. But this is what I want to talk about here, Sandy. Solar, wind turbines. This is interesting. Yeah, so Idaho, back me up. Right now, Idaho happens to be one of the top three on renewable resources energies in the United States. And we've been that way for nearly 50 years. The reason why Idaho has been one of the most green friendly energy producers in the United States for the last 50 years is because of the amount of hydropower that exists in the state of Idaho. Okay. Oh, lovely idea. I don't see how that could go wrong at all. Amberly, capturing kinetic wave motions. It is, and it's developing. Some of the other things that they're looking at as far as developing technology is algae gas, being able to create fuels from algae, renewables like plant-based oils. We've actually had an awful lot of people talk about being able to take vegetable oil, which is renewable. And honestly, vegetable oil is much better as a fuel than it is as a food. Yes, it is. But yeah, I recognize my audience tonight. Idaho is the first nuclear capable state in the United States. We are the first all nuclear town, Arco, Idaho. Yes, we are. We're one of the first nuclear plants tested out here in eastern Idaho. We've been doing nuclear for, well, World War II. We've been doing nuclear that long here in the state of Idaho, nuclear power. For the longest time, we were almost entirely hydropower. This is one of those things that's got particularly interesting. The reason why is because Idaho's hydropower, that green energy source it represents, is actually under attack right now. Idaho is getting forced to fossil fuels and coal, or coal and coal. Coal is a fossil fuel. Okay, we're being forced to fossil fuels out of energy plants out of Wyoming and Utah because the hydro dams that have been powering Idaho for 50 years affect the salmon runs. Okay, these hydro dams have been there 50 years, 60 years, 70 years in some cases. These hydro dams along the Snake River area, yes, they affect the salmon runs. Somehow, they've existed for over 50 years before salmon runs became a problem. Yet for some reason, something that's developed in the last 10 years is being blamed on those hydropower dams. So we're actually being forced off of hydropower here in the state of Idaho in order to blow dams for the salmon runs so we can restore the salmon population and biodiversity in the state of Idaho, particularly in our rivers. And this is a dangerous payoff. Now, I'm not going to get into a debate tonight as to whether or not the biodiversity of being able to rebound salmon population in U.S. rivers is worth transitioning away from the hydropower that's been the mainstay for Idaho and several of our neighbors for several years, because we're literally trading hydropower, renewable, all natural, for carbon-based pollutants that turn around and go back into our water systems, etc. So this represents a dangerous aspect of what gas prices are going to continue to cause for us here in the United States as we continue to go back and forth between the different systems. So let's go through here, take a look. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Sandy. Hemp oil. Wireless satellite solar. You've been looking at some Tesla diagrams, haven't you, Ghost Star? Washington State, it's right up there. The interesting thing is right outside of Boise, we have a hydropower plant there. It's owned by Seattle Light. Here we are. We have a dam that's responsible for the irrigation of most of the Magic Valley, or sorry, the Treasure Valley here in Idaho, in the Boise area, southwest. Um, it provides hydropower for Seattle. Right next door, we're buying coal. The plant next door is providing hydropower for Seattle. Um, Sorry, I got this image of Fred Flintstone doing his whole pedal power car. Uh, you know, um, and this is interesting. Sandy, you bring up the issue of the nuclear power, particularly 3 Mile Island meltdown. Now, we've had significant atomic nuclear power plants, you know, Ukraine, which was one of those things, surprisingly, back in the day when it was, God, I can't even remember the name of the plant. Somebody's going to remind me here as I go through this. But in Ukraine, one of the power plants that went down, nuclear meltdown. Um, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima in Japan. We continue to see these major disasters in nuclear plants all across the United States. Now, we have some of the best systems. We've developed more safety nets, but the thing is we still haven't been able to generate full burns so that there's no nuclear fuel left over. There's no radioactive waste left at the end. So we got back to the storage. Now, I know there's a lot of talk out there about being able to do full burn nuclear so that we're not worried about the leftover fuel because it's all gone. However, it still continues to be a problem, and some of our older systems aren't able to be retrofit with that capability. So we're looking through the issue of being able to make nuclear power safe. Well, one, it is safe. It's one of the safest in the world for the amount of energy it produces. Now, out here, one of the other things that we bring up, geothermal system in the country. Yes, Idaho, one of the most successful geothermal. Matter of fact, Warm Springs Avenue, downtown Boise, pioneered geothermal. Yes, it did. All of the radiation, all the radiator heat that is based out of most of our old school houses back when Boise was first formed are all done on geothermal heat. We heated the houses geothermally. Didn't need a fireplace because hot water heated it. We were able to pump hot water out of the ground for heated pools in case you wanted to maintain some sort of fish farm in downtown Boise. Um, Geothermal. It's real. It's a source. Idaho has an awful lot of geothermal sources in order to continue to maintain and produce energy. Matter of fact, several of our LEEDs certified architectural designs that have been installed in downtown Boise actually use geothermal. Boise State University has a major geothermal capacity in several of its buildings. Boise State University, geothermally heated. So we continue to see geothermal as being a very big, and Idaho's great to be able to experiment with that simply because of the amount of it that exists. And it is renewable because the core of the earth is always going to be hot. James, biodiesel. We've been doing biodiesel for 20 years. Okay. Why we haven't gone more into the biodiesel being able to recycle vegetable oil is that's basically what it is, the biodiesel, hemp oil, several of those other things. We have the capability. For that matter, we can actually go back to alcohol engines as well. Fuel your car with vodka. Yeah, remember when Prohibition killed the alcohol engine? Yeah, they bury that a little bit. And that's one of the things, James. All the fossil fuels were biologic. So there's no reason we can't recreate fossil fuels from current biological systems. There's a certain amount of energy exchange that goes with creation of those fuels, biodiesel. alcohol as far as being able to make energy production with them. However, Ghost Star, Nevada dams. Oh, water's not deep enough anymore, is it? Right? Bonneville Dam on the Columbia has been there since the 30s. Yeah. And yes, the salmon runs have been affected. Okay. Washington State still hasn't decided what to do with it. Oregon State hasn't. The United States Army Corps of Engineers is actually the one that's responsible for most of the hydrological dams or hydropower dams along the Snake and Columbia rivers, which means really it's a federal policy that's going to determine whether or not those dams go and whether or not the power that's associated with them, how it's going to be replaced or if it's going to be replaced. So a lot of those United States Army Corps of Engineers going to be paying attention to what they're doing with regards to those dams, with regards to the hydropower and what goes on with that. Fossil, dead dinosaurs. Yep. Chernobyl. Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. Chernobyl, which is actually in the Ukraine. And it was one of those things. Right? Historically, safest and cleanest power, even considering the few significant accidents. Consequences of failure is high, likelihood low. Okay. It's true, and as our automation continues to come online, a lot of the systems that used to fail because of human error have been automated. That human error has been automated out of the process. So we continue to see success along those lines. India's reduced environmental regs. No more. Well, yeah, we definitely don't want to be creating nukes. Whether the human control mechanism for the nuclear plants goes offline permanently. Our geothermal heat. 93 buildings downtown, Boise State University, the Jump Simplot building, City Hall, okay, and those are significant buildings. Those are commercial buildings. Those aren't the homes sitting down on Warm Springs Avenue. Those aren't the homes sitting in the rest of the state. Sandy, corn oil. Honestly, corn oil would be better for fuels than it is for us as food. And that is an interesting aspect about this discussion, Mike, because, yeah, they aren't finite. It is a cycle. It is a renewable cycle because as we continue to put carbon sequestration, yes, that is the word, carbon sequestration, the process of injecting carbon into the ground so that it isn't in the air we breathe, continues to maintain that process. Okay, the real question with regards to the fossil fuel geological process is how close are we to exhausting the existing supply before we have to wait for the process to create new? And how fast nature produces it. Uranium goes out the stack of a coal plant. Yes, ironically. We actually run into a certain amount of that with regards to phosphates. And a lot of our phosphate mines that we use for fertilizer, particularly here in Idaho. Simplot runs 2 phosphate mines out of eastern Idaho. Yeah, biodiesel, potatoes. We can either make potato oil or potato alcohol. Either way. But yeah, we continue to deal with nuclear isotopes in our phosphates in our fertilizer system here in the state of Idaho. And a lot of that fertilizer here in the state of Idaho is currently being shipped across the United States. Radioactive fertilizer going into our farms. Jimmy Carter, compact nuclear power plants for the Navy. Didn't Jimmy Carter actually get a Navy Cross for going into a nuclear power plant in order to rescue somebody as a Navy lieutenant or something? Which is odd because the man literally took massive radiation dosage, in order to save somebody else, and the man's still kicking it. Still. Older than the hills. Only pay attention. Pay attention what Amberly's saying. Go out like what we're talking about. Like what we're talking about. Okay, some of the other things. So one of the things about biodiesel, a lot of the trucks and stuff that have converted over to biodiesel go around smelling like taco trucks, smelling like tacos. Because they're using the grease from the fryers, and it just, anyway. I think the world would actually smell better if we ran everything on biodiesel. Just be able, tacos. Okay. Let's get back to this big issue, World War III. Okay. 57. That's it. 57 U.S. congressmen. Yep. YOLO'd into a reactor. Okay. World War III. Gotta change something here real quick. Gotta update this. World War III, Ukraine aid, $40 billion. Okay. That is nearly 70% of the entire Russian military budget. We just gave Ukraine $40 billion. 80% of the entire Russian budget was just gifted. Okay. There were only 57 U.S. congressmen who voted against that aid. That means everybody else is supporting the continuation of a proxy war in Ukraine rather than a de-escalation process. $40 billion. We complain that Elon Musk could have ended world hunger. We complain that Elon Musk could have solved homelessness in the United States. Claim that Elon Musk could have been able to solve poverty in the United States for significantly less than that. We sent $40 billion to be able to maintain a proxy war against Russia. That's what the vote was for. Okay. I got to make a concession here. One of those 57 who voted against the Ukraine aid package that would have maintained the conflict in eastern Idaho is my opponent. Yes. Thank you for all the good it did. You and the 56 other U.S. congressmen who voted against that aid stood up against the rest of the Congress, against all of the Democrats, to continue to support a conflict that's going to continue to result in human rights violations, death, hunger, and because the U.S. sponsored biological research facilities that are in the Ukraine that have been exposed to combat action, artillery, and bombs, we still run the risk of excessive pestilence, plague, more variations of COVID as a result of certain weapons of mass destruction potentially being released from many of those bioresearch facilities. That's what $40 billion in aid to Ukraine can mean to global environmental impact, global health impact, global trade, as well as the fact that Ukraine is no longer nuclear capable. However, we are maintaining the proxy war with a nuclear capable opponent. We continue to see and continue to hear from several news media sources here in the United States that Russia has not taken the use of nukes against Ukraine off of the table. Okay, it would be stupid for Russia to nuke Ukraine. Regardless of how much money we pile into the Ukraine, Chernobyl was Russian when it blew up. Ukraine was part of Russia, and Chernobyl was Russia's responsibility when it went terminal. Russia understands the hazards associated with a nuclear war. Let's go ahead and talk about some of this. Out here. Draft dodging blood soaked monsters. Absolutely. Biden has never served. Trump didn't serve. A significant number of our members of Congress have not served. My opponent hasn't served. At least he voted right. But a lot of these are talking about being wartime congressmen, wartime senators. Sleepy Joe. Now, this is an interesting thing because Sleepy has advocated for every war since Vietnam, which he managed to get out of, by the way. Amber, lethal aid, mad cash, $40 billion. There's another example of taxation. This is an interesting aspect because we look at it as taxes spent. This is resources that could have been used for the American people, whether you believe it was taxes that were stolen from us or whether you believe in modern monetary theory and that this is just part of the money supply. This is money supply that could have stayed in the United States, whether it is tax revenue that the U.S. government is spending or whether you use it as this is the resource pool of the American people. This is money that could be spent in the United States. $40 billion just got added to the deficit in order to perpetuate war in Eastern Europe. Not a good thing. If it's possible, dump the incumbents. Dump the incumbents. It's the only way we hold them responsible is we make sure that we get out. We let our friends know that they need to dump the incumbents. It's the only way we hold the current powers that be accountable. U.S. aid, that $40 billion to the Ukraine now makes the Ukraine the 5th largest military weapons budget in the world. A community, a country that was largely agrarian not that long ago is now the 5th strongest military on the globe. James Doe, this is an interesting aspect. Why does the war in Ukraine call for World War III, but 20 years in Afghanistan wasn't? This is actually interesting because this is the part of the unilateral action. Okay. The recent statement by the joint members of China, joint heads of state of China and Russia, talking about the fact that they will no longer accept unilateral actions by the United States with regards to the global community. 20 years in Afghanistan was a unilateral action that nobody opposed. Ukraine was a unilateral action by Russia that was opposed by America, opposed by the United States. Now, what we look at as far as moving forward with regards to that is because it is Eastern Europe, because the United States has decided to object to the way Russia has done what the United States has gotten used to doing without opposition. believe they came up with some sort of term like multifocal, multilateral. Anyway, the point is the two other superpowers on the globe, China and Russia, are stepping up and saying that unilateral action by the United States in global communities will no longer be acceptable. We have to accept that Russia and China will take measures in order to secure their security. Thank you, Ben Franklin. Those who give up freedom for a little bit of security will get neither, nor will deserve neither and get neither. Roughly paraphrased. Afghanistan was never a nuclear power. Ukraine was at one time. Then somehow the United States convinced Ukraine to give up all of its nuclear capability because we would protect them. Yeah. And this is one of the things that we need to do. Cut the DoD and foreign cash giveaways. Dude, you know how much money we spend on the DoD? $700 billion a year. Probably significantly more than that. Roughly $1 trillion of our budget goes to DoD and foreign aid through either the CIA, Department of State, and the Department of Defense. We could reduce those budgets significantly, and the amount of taxes, the amount of money being removed from the economy would be significantly less. Amber, one of the things, it's the public money. So wondering when you're going to get around to that, Amber. Difference between tax and public money is depending on whether or not you're thinking in terms of old school fixed currency, or whether or not you're talking in terms of the power of the house to create money out of thin air, modern monetary theory, which we've completely screwed the pooch because we've injected nearly 20 trillion in new money into the economy, which was not supposed to happen because it's dangerous to the economy and it doesn't do what it needs to do as far as leveling things out. We will never be able to recall that significant amount of money from the economy in order to restore previous purchasing power. We broke the system, man. We broke the system. Critical security threat to a nuclear power. Afghanistan didn't. Even though we were next door to Pakistan, and Pakistan is nuclear. U.S. occupation of Afghanistan, or even Russian occupation of Afghanistan back in the day, did not actually become a significant threat to a nuclear capable power. Every country, yep. Yeah, we're not so good at protecting the people we tell. Do what we do and we'll protect you. Yeah. The Kurds, the Afghanis, continues to be problem, on and on. It's a good point you bring up here, Go Start. Whole world. Yeah, 20%. China has more people. India has more people. Could be. All we got to do is be able to control the amount of money that's in the economy, which right now we have not done a good job of. We let the Fed print all the money they want all the time. More than a few chances since 1990 to make Russia a decent friend. Yeah. Since 1990. We could have been allies since 1990. China since 1970. Okay, we have had all of this time to heal the rifts between China and Russia and the United States and be able to create, okay, not a new world order, because that's not what we want, but we had the opportunity to create a cooperative global community with free trade that would have allowed us to reach the stars. We would be mining in the asteroid belt today if rather than deciding we needed a boogeyman, we had gone into cooperative arrangements with Russia and China, at the respective times in history. We'd have Space Force, real Space Force. Mormons in space. We would have had Mormons in space already. Who out there watches The Expanse? Yeah. Right. Certificates of debt collateralized by human capital and or future ability to produce. Our spending today creates debt for our children. Even if you look at it from the modern monetary theory aspect, the amount of money that we have put into the economy has created a debt our children are going to have to pay back. And it's got to be balanced. We got to be able to balance the book somehow. And right now, we do not have the people in office that are interested in seeing that happen. 1940s tax rate. Yep, Panama Papers. Ooh, the Panama Papers and the Afghanistan Papers. Big issues. Right. We could have had a road that had gone around the world. You'd have been able to drive anywhere on the drive, not fly, drive on paved road anywhere on the globe. But no, we want to start wars. I'm down to about 8 minutes, and I got a couple other things I want to talk about. Student loans forgiveness. Yeah, this one's particularly problematic because honestly, student loans could be forgiven. The $1 trillion in student loans that are currently out there, is significantly less than the amount of money we spend on Department of Defense and the global wars in any given year. Okay. We could take the U.S. defense budget and in 2 years pay off all of the loans in the United States, all the student loans. And the reason why there's $1 trillion in student debts right now is because of government involvement in pushing education. The reason why is because at some point, education, we wanted an educated America. We wanted an educated United States. And we felt that universities was the education that they needed. So we made education cheap. My friend Mike pointed out not that long ago on Twitter is the market has an amazing capacity to absorb excess. When you subsidize something on the market adjusts. And all of that extra money you adjusted into that specific industry gets absorbed with a quickness. Especially when it's secured by a mandate that you cannot discharge the debt, therefore removing all risk associated with it. Ohio, Iowa, Idaho, Hawaii highway. Oof. It's a tongue twister and a half. Allow the borrowers to default. And that would actually be adding risk back to a system that risk was eliminated from. It would hurt the banks, but the banks honestly never should have made those loans in the first place. And the universities that got people involved in degrees that served no purpose, because they're co-signers on a lot of those, would be hurt as well. Universities would actually have to start teaching courses that had projected employment associated with them after somebody completed the degree. You could. Honestly, we do it with trades. Okay. Or if not free, at least be able to work your way through the education system. Trades have been doing it hundreds of years. Work your way through journeyman, or work your way through apprentice, work your way through journeyman, work your way into master. You know, working the trade pays for itself. Thing is it needs to be resolved. The United States Department of Education has been one of the largest contributors to student debt globally. It's also one of those things that has created the industry of education, including the high risk, unaccredited education systems that don't actually teach people, give people the accreditation for the skills that they need in order to pursue the education that they believe they have been taught. Okay. The United States Department of Education has created an entirely predatory system. And until that predatory system is disassembled, and yes, it is going to require the disassembly of the United States Department of Education in order to complete it. It is one of the institutions of the United States that continues to maintain and support racism, classism, and perpetuate poverty and debt in the United States. Most of you understand that I do not support capitalism because I recognize that the power imbalance associated with sticking your thumb on the scale of capital with regards to how things are handled in the economy represents a danger to just about everybody in the United States. Okay, I do support free markets. Free markets do not allow capital to be accumulated, do not allow power to be accumulated in any one given location. Big government and big industry need each other in order to continue to exist and perpetuate each other's existence. Once one goes, the other goes. My philosophy on that. I know there are people out there that will debate it, but that's my belief on that specific situation. So student loans. Okay, one last one. I got 2 minutes here and I want to hit this fast. Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay. She was indicted, found guilty of child trafficking to well-placed political figures in the United States. Now, globally for that matter, because it also included members of the British royal family. Okay. It's been 2 years. A judge has just reduced her sentence by 10 years. Meanwhile, none of the clients of which she is accused of having trafficked children to have been brought to justice for inappropriate relations with children. We continue to see that play out. This represents a power play. This represents a power broker. Now, regardless of how you feel about it, this represents a blackmail capability that exists against several key figures in the United States government. And it's one of those things that they've continued to use to influence key decisions in the administrations as well as in Congress with regards to the votes. Yeah, right? Absolutely. James, use the loans wisely. Get yourself involved in a career. And yes, Mormons in space. Yeah, that's it for me. I've been doing my hour. I got other things I got to roll off and do. Got to go do my Kind Idaho thing. In the meantime, pay attention. Family, friends, community. As long as you got those 3 things, you can make anything happen. Going back to my original point, ladies, help a sister out. Don't get judgmental about how they take care of their children. Help them take care of their children. Love you guys. Stay safe. Be good to each other.